Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. You'll get 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection. And with the welcome offer of 150,000 points, your business can soar to all new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
You kind of learn a lot from it just by watching it.
It created an entire new genre.
I didn't realise how much 90s had like an aesthetic, and I think this is 90s down to 11.
I still refer to my period as surfing the crimson wave as a result of this film. It's such a wonderfully well put phrase.
There's so much warmth, and I just really love Britanny Murphy in this. She's just so adorable.
It's so perfectly told, it's so perfectly updated as well. The same satire that Jane Austen's trying to say about how just by being true to yourself you can find true love and true happiness. I think that's beautiful. Everyone in the cast is on their A game in this film.
Hello film fans, joining us today we have Esther.
Hello.
Jass.
Hey.
And as always, Kobe.
Hey.
And we're here to review Clueless.
Thank you as always to the mighty people for the mighty, mighty tunes. And thanks to Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills.
Please do remember to write a review and rate us on Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can do where you listen to the podcast, because it really does help us.
And you can join in the conversation with us on Twitter
at FlixWatcherPod and on Instagram
at Flixwatcher.
Hello and welcome to Flixwatcher podcast. Joining us today we have Esther and Jass. If you would like to say hello and tell the listeners a little bit more about who you are and what you do, please.
I'm going to let Jass go first.
Okay. My name's Jass. I am co-host with Esther for the Well Spoken Tokens podcast, where we talk about how to make the cultural sector more intersectional, to build up people who are historically marginalised within the sector and try and make it a bit more equal for everyone. We have guests on each week and all of our episodes are themed. So do find us at Well Spoken Tokens on Twitter and on Spotify as well. I personally have a business called Intersectional Glam. Glam stands for Galleries, Libraries, Archives and Museums, where I do training sessions and work towards basically doing the practical stuff to make museums, libraries and galleries and museums more intersectional. You can check out my work on intersectionalglam.org.
I never heard of the term glam for that collective of cultural phenomenon, for want of a better word, because it's a great acronym.
Thanks.
Tell us a bit more about that, because it's the first time I've heard it, and I immediately want to go glam rock. There must be some kind of
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like a really natural kind of combination for that sector where you're telling stories and you're using research and history. So, yeah, it's not necessarily specifically very glam, but it does encompass sort of all of that work where, you know, you're meeting the public and you're telling stories from archives and telling the history of the world in different ways.
Yeah, the glam part is to describe me. Not
it is mainly Jass.
But it was not historically, but it was used in the past. It's still used in places like the US and Australia. So I've just adopted it within the name.
Nice. Well, okay. So today we are talking about Clueless, which is quite glam.
Yes.
I wonder who chose this film. And Esther, beforehand, she was brandishing a DVD, which is something of an old artifact. This is the kind of thing you see in a museum now, kids.
Well, this is it. Actually, because the artifact I did want to bring, and I've lost it, I'm really annoyed. I have the original soundtrack on cassette. I did own it on video. I have owned every incarnation of this film. I do really love it.
Tell us what it is. Tell us the synopsis and a bit more why you picked it.
So Clueless is about Cher, who is a Beverly Hills elite teenager. She likes to think she knows everything, and there's a transfer student called Ty who moves to her school. A lot of what she thinks she's doing is really like helping other people and just, interfering in people's lives. She meddles in her teacher's life, she meddles in Ty's life, but then she gets a bit of self-actualization as she goes along, and you realize that she has an amazing heart and that she is someone who's really relatable. So yeah, Cher, regular teenager, maybe not so regular, but her high school life, it just brings everything in the world. And I picked it because it's an adaptation of Emma by Jane Austen. I didn't know that at the time I watched it originally, but if you've read Austen, it is amazing at doing that sort of social satire.
Helen, Jass, how many times do you guys watch Clueless? Is this a film you grew up watching? Did you go to see it in a cinema? Tell me your history behind it.
I didn't see it at the cinema, but I've seen it a lot. Double figures at least.
Yeah, I've definitely lost count of how many times I've seen it. It's like a good sleepover film, isn't it? It's just a cute film.
I guess it is just a cute film. I mean, I've only seen it. Maybe I remember it coming out. I didn't see it in the cinema, but it's. I remember it just being like a high watermark of like teen films, and probably changed a few. Probably catalyzed the fact that teen films were a thing and people were interested in teen movies. It was a good example of like a soundtrack that was current, and it was so 90s. Like, I mean, looking back, I remember coming out. I think I was into Radiohead a lot of the time, so that was one of the things that interested me. I was like, oh, there's an American film with Radiohead. And it was the Ben's Radiohead's era, which I didn't realize they kind of transferred over. But but looking back at it now, it's like, oh my god, this is painfully 90s. It's like the most.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
It created its own lexicon. It created its own dialogue, and there are things that you can say, and you only know that comes out of Clueless. It was so special. I mean, I did watch it at the cinema. And again, I probably saw it a few times with my friends. I remember, I think probably it was Just 17, but definitely one of the magazines I was reading at the time published the lexicon. And so I was like, before I went, I was like, yeah, I can refer to Barney's. I was like, yeah, whatever, making I used it in the appropriate context. I still
You're the only person I know that refers to slang as lexicon. Like in everyday language.
I'm a Brummy blurred. But yeah, I still refer to my period as surfing the crimson wave as a result of this film. It's such a beautifully, such a wonderfully well put phrase. It's fantastic.
That's not from that film though. I think that was before that they just
it popularized it.
Yeah.
It also introduced me to Paul Rudd, which I'm forever grateful.
Was he doing anything before that?
But it was the first film I'd seen him in. I saw him in this before Romeo and Juliet, whereas probably quite a lot of people might have seen him in that.
Yeah, I think he'd done some TV stuff. Yeah, Paul Rudd. He's an absolute Barney. I mean, he's charming and he's really sweet and he's got that great smile. Yeah. I mean, the film for me is not just a love letter to Paul Rudd, but if he weren't convincing as someone who could be kind of quite mean to Cher and then still be someone that she falls in love with, then the whole film would fall apart. And all of the characters, I think, individually, you fall in love with them and you think, these are really kind-hearted people, they aren't mean-spirited, they deserve the happiness they get, it's really earned, and they do go on a journey, and I think it's really beautiful.
I think the key thing for me about this, that they are all doing this from the kindness in their heart, and there's just no kind of negativeness, and there's so much warmth, and I just really love Britanny Murphy in this. She's just so adorable.
Do you guys kind of feel that I kind of feel like, well, can you not let people be people? But I mean, obviously the relationship they got together with the teachers ended up positively, but this kind of meddling, is there any downside to that, do you guys reckon?
I think it's really funny because the meddling was just to make their lives easier with the teacher. It did end up being a really lovely thing that they did. I found like, you know, you saying about being wholesome, like the whole, like, oh God, I'm going to sound so old, but like so many like teenage dramas and stuff, it's just like kids having sex when they're like 14 and like doing loads of drugs and drinking. I'm like, this is hopefully not real life for lots of people. But I enjoyed in Cher where Dionne was like in a committed relationship, but then she was like, oh no, we waited until like whenever, or we haven't done it. There was like a lot of really open talk about sex and sexuality.
Choosing when you're ready. Yeah, choosing when you're ready and being like not being shamed for being a virgin. And
apart from when she goes, "You're a virgin who can't drive."
Everyone's allowed a low moment in the film, and everyone has those little moments. Again, she's regretful. Afterwards, she shows humility. She realizes that was way harsh, Ty.
It was way harsh, but I love that about the film. It was very much like everyone just does and goes at their own pace. Even the character whose name I forget, who she kind of is really into at the beginning, but is like very coded as being gay.
Oh,
but
Christian.
Not come out yet. Yeah, Christian. And I like that she kind of just let him go at his own pace. It was all very like no judgment for a lot of it. Although there was that one scene where someone tries to sexually assault her,
yeah,
and then she like kicks them off in the car, and she's like, in her monologue in her head, she's like, "What a day! This happened, and then someone tried to sexually assault me." And I was like, "What?" I don't remember that scene like in it at all. But I like that they named what it was. She was obviously shook by it, but then they just kind of moved on, which was like a really good, like not a good way of explaining like
right.
the experience of being a woman. But like I was like, well, yeah, you do just kind of move on when weird stuff like that happens, I guess.
It's interesting that when she says sexual assault, I think that might have been glossed over a lot more when this first came out.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, this is not you men, but now that does take more relevance. And I think people do think, oh, that is sexual assault if it's not wanted, no matter what you're going for, it's still an assault that's unwarranted. So that kind of hit me a bit more this time.
And he very clearly says no several times. She's very clearly, no, it was a game we were playing suck and blow. No, I'm not interested in this. And he's like, oh, come on. Very pressure, very teenage boy, I have to say, like sometimes in some of the experiences I've had. Not all of them, but, you know, you can get that thing where it's like, oh, do you know what? Come on, like that cajoling, oh, this is harmless with, you know, and she stands her ground. It's really, really impressive that she does stand her ground. And obviously she pays for it in losing, like getting mugged straight afterwards.
But she gets mugged, and it's like this Cher. And by that point, you're completely in love with her. So you're like, oh my God, Cher. Also, she reminds me of Barbie, and I loved Barbie, which I've only just realized. She is like a really big-hearted, real-life Barbie doll.
And I wanted her wardrobe. I wanted every single thing that she wore, every single thing Dionne wore in that film. The fashion stands up.
My favourite thing, which I still do to this day, is when she goes, I don't trust mirrors. I take photos of everything that I wear to check that it looks good.
I think it's interesting. I was going to say about Elton's behaviour, because most other teen films would have made that out to be romantic and would have maybe, you know, celebrated his persistence, and that be something that, you know, is kind of rewarded. Where in this film, basically, he's written off after that. So it's quite interesting that it doesn't follow a lot of maybe romantic tropes that were around. And also, when you're saying about the meddling, it's when things start to go bad for Cher when she tries to meddle too much with Ty, and it's only after she kind of lets Ty be herself that things kind of settle out for her a bit more. So even though she does meddle, she kind of realizes that actually it's not what Ty wanted, and she should step back and not try and control people, and you know, everything sort of soothes its way out.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting because she's clearly Ty was interested in the skateboarder guy from the start.
Yeah.
And there was a kinship there, like right from the start, that could have happened. It was only because of Cher and Dionne saying, no, you want Elton. You want Elton, so he's the guy for you. That's suddenly Ty was like, yeah, actually Elton's really cool, and she becomes infatuated with him, even though.
And that's
really
straight out of Jane Austen. That's straight out of Jane Austen. That is literally, I mean, it isn't a light retelling of Emma. It is full on Emma. You lose a couple of characters, but that whole scenario is, for people who are fans of the novel, that's perfect. It's so perfectly told. It's so perfectly updated as well. And the same satire that Jane Austen's trying to say about how just by being true to yourself, you can find true love and true happiness. I think that's beautiful. And that's 18th century writing that comes through in a really beautifully well told way in the 20th century.
Yeah, what Helen, you said about, I did comment about painfully 90s. I didn't mean that in a negative way, but it's just like, I think until rewatching this film, I didn't realize how much 90s had like an aesthetic. And I think this is 90s down to 11, but then there are, obviously when you watch Friends, it's like, yeah, that's 90s. But I think there's not as like out there as the 80s was in terms of an aesthetic. But this is where it's like, yeah, this could only have been made in the 90s. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Are there any of the 90s films that kind of stick you out as like, oh yeah, this is peak 90s?
Reality Bites and Singles, and more recently there's mid-90s, which is obviously a new film, but that's very 90s. But yeah, like Singles and Reality Bites were the slightly grungier ones. Yeah. And basically I probably wanted to be Winona Ryder more than I did Cher, Alicia Silverstone.
For me, because it's not so much how iconically 90s it is, it's like this iconic sort of version of like a teen movie like Mean Girls or Heathers. So when you talk about Reality Bites, whenever I think about this film, I think about those cliques and I think about Heathers and I think about Mean Girls. And again, what sets this apart is that they aren't mean girls, they're nice people. And they do that kind of thing that then gets copied in Mean Girls, where they talk about all the different cliques. But actually, it's really nice because it's a really diverse film and it's got these kind of tried to do these narrow stereotypes. But actually, the film's really open to people crossing those boundaries and crossing over them. I think I really want to say, and I don't know if I'm overstating it, but it's like revolutionary.
I was going to say, it does loads of things that... basically, in the casting, it's you've got Stacey Dash and Donald Faison being black characters in it, and it doesn't make a point about having a diverse casting. Whereas now it seems like when something like The Good Place has diverse casting, we need to make a point and go like, "Oh my god, the casting's so diverse," because we'd obviously had so much shit casting before that we need to go back and make sure that we do have a diverse range of people being represented. But this kind of did it in such a natural way that I think we do forget, it created an entire new genre just from what it did.
I think The Good Place isn't a fair analogy because The Good Place doesn't call that on itself. I think there's other people saying, look, this is what you could have. At no point does anyone comment on the fact that Manny is Southeast Asian or Chidi Anagonye is from Senegal or Ghana. It's not within the show. It's just like, I think other people are like, guys, we can have diversity in TV without making it an issue. So where are the rest of the cast at the moment? Paul Rudd is doing his thing, but have you guys seen Alicia or Donald recently?
Yeah, they're all doing a lot of good TV. I mean, I've had a soft spot for Breckin Meyer since this film, and I loved Franklin and Bash, and like that was just something that just played into like his comedic strengths, like this kind of happy-go-lucky kind of character, and he's evolved from being like the teenage stoner into being like this adult, joyful, like sort of actor. Donald Faison, obviously, he was most known for being in Scrubs, and he's doing lots of US TV. Jeremy Sisto did, I can't remember, it's something like Suburbia, that sort of little suburban sitcom, which notably had Alicia Silverstone on it as a cameo character for a little while. So I really enjoyed that. Even now in his career, they're like referencing back to Clueless because it's so iconic. Yeah, and then unfortunately Stacey Dash is a Fox News. Well, she was. I think she's been fired from Fox News now, which that's I don't know.
That's a god.
But yeah, so, you know, they're all pretty much all of them still working. I think the actor who played Christian's not working anymore. But yeah, obviously the stratospheric rise of Rudd was the result of this. And Alicia Silverstone, I think, yeah, she still works. I mean, being in a terrible Batman movie probably doesn't do anything for your career. But
well, she came last time I saw her. She was in Killing of a Sacred Deer, that Yorgos Lanthimos film, which was
almost unrecognizable.
But the Stacey Dash is a strange one, isn't it? Because I saw recently like a list of celebrity Trump supporters, and I was like, first of all, the list isn't that long or interesting. Stacey Dash is probably the most interesting, and John Voight is like, when you see John Voight, like, I can understand that. But like Stacey Dash, you're like, really? And then you got Kanye West, his own thing. But I think one of the main members of the cast we haven't talked about is Britanny Murphy's untimely passing, which is when she was looking to do good things, and I was like super gutted when she passed away, which was that's about a decade ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, only 32. That was really sad.
I recently had a friend text me and say they're watching Clueless, and that Britanny and that I remind them of Ty.
Why?
Absolutely.
I said, why? No, I have some really dark sense of humor, so I just sent a message back, why? Because I'm dead. And then she was like, no, because you're ditzy. And I was like, that's the worst response. But Ty is a really nice character, so I'll take it.
I think like she's a feisty ball of energy. She's like, you know what? I am going to stand up for myself. Don't tell me I can't have the man that I want. I think you do have lots in common with Ty. But yeah, Britanny Murphy, Sin City, obviously she was in that as well, playing that kind of...
Happy Feet. She was in Happy Feet and she sang. And it was lovely.
Yeah. This is it. The talent on display, and even like the side talent, like the adult cast, you've got Dan Hedaya, who's a really great actor, and the amazing Wallace Shawn. I mean, having like this on your resume and also The Princess Bride, I mean, are you just the most iconic actor ever? Possibly. Yeah, the entire cast, and Twink Kaplan, I mean, she's just really, really sweet as Miss Geist. I mean, she could have been like this ditzy character that everyone just sort of laughed at and been comedic value, but actually you really empathise with her. Everyone in the cast is on their A game in this film.
It's such an easy film to watch. It gives a lot. Like, it does seem like, it could be one of these like rom-coms that doesn't have a lot of heart to it or any kind of substance, but you kind of learn a lot from it just by watching it, and you don't even realize that you're being taught anything when you watch it, which I think is like pretty amazing.
Like her speech about like welcoming the Haytons to the party, it's always consistently with the character being really compassionate and giving and wanting to do for others and helping out other people. And yes, she's rich, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't want to help. I think that's really sweet.
I think one of the biggest things I liked about Cher was when Ty first turns up to school. Clearly doesn't fit in, maybe from the East Coast of things. I can't remember where it says she was from exactly. But in like standard teen movie lore, she'd be the one that's kind of ostracized from the start, and people are like, this one. But I don't necessarily like the meddling side of things, or say, let's have a makeover. But the fact that she was taken on board readily is a super sweet thing, which I don't think you see enough in this kind of story.
But I totally also understand that kind of meddling, that like, let's make you fit in, is the headspace that teenagers are in. And then at the end they realize like, no, you don't have to fit in, you just have to be yourself, and then everything will be fine. Maybe I'm reading into it too much.
No, but I think you are. I think using your popularity for good, and that's the whole kind of Emma story where Knightley or Josh's character influences her to be a better person, and it's that kind of try to make someone a better person is not a bad thing as long as you don't take it too far.
And it's okay to care about clothes and boys and makeup and stuff, as long as you also care about other things in the world. Like, they're not mutually exclusive. You can do both.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And send yourself flowers all the time. That's also what I learned from that film.
I mean, have I ever drawn attention to my lips when I was trying to flirt with someone? Maybe. There was some really solid advice in that film.
Guys, I think we should head to the scores.
Hello, I'm Sam Pay.
And I'm Martin Zott-Zorstwick.
And together we host a show called
Song by Song,
where we deal with the music of Tom Waits. We've been going since 2015. Every week we talk about a new track. We've made our way through 15 seasons so far of his music.
And now we're going back to the early years. And if you haven't listened to Tom Waits before, it's not the growly stuff. It's not the stuff where he's hitting an automobile with a bone for percussion. It's a nice, easy way into his music.
If that sounds like something you would be interested in, you should check out our website, songbysongpodcast.com, or put Song by Song into your podcatcher of choice.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Go to Blinds.com for 40% off site-wide. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
So the patented, non-patented yet, Flixwatcher scores are all out of 5, and you can have decimal places if you wish. And Esther, you pick the film, so we'll start with you, please, with your recommendability.
Oh, please, 5. I mean, it is really good. I've got male friends who like it. I think it's actually quite good for both genders. I think it's funny, it's heartwarming, really easy to watch, as Jass said. You will not waste your time with this film at all. You can spend hours just enjoying the positivity and the great acting and the great performances.
Jass?
I'd give it a 4, I think. Just because in terms of, like, I would recommend it, but I also think it lends itself to a certain kind of audience, and not everybody's going to want to watch it.
Helen?
I'm going to give it 5. I just think its heart is just in the right place, and it's funny, and it's only 1 hour and 37 minutes, and it's just so bright and breezy and cheerful, and the soundtrack's really fun. And even if you're kind of like just a little bit curious, like you've watched Paul Rudd in like all of the teen comedies and all of the Marvel stuff, and you're like, I wonder what his first film was like, then you'll enjoy watching this. So I wouldn't not recommend it to anyone. And I think it's aged really well as well. It doesn't feel like dated, and even like her little computer she's got for working out like her outfits doesn't look too shoddy. You're like, I could totally imagine that as like an app on my phone now.
I'm going to go for 4 as well. I think I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it less the more times I watched it. I think at the first time I watched it, I was like kind of peak age. I think it was pretty much the same age as those guys at the time. So it was like, well, this is what it could be like, not in Manchester, when in Beverly Hills. And I think there's more interesting takes on the kind of teen movie since then. But I'd definitely say watch it. I just think for an older person watching it for the first time, they probably would think, why am I watching this? So, I'm going to go for 4. Repeat viewing score, Esther. 5?
I mean, I have to say, I do remember it Mel Gibson accurately. So again, I can rewatch this over and over again. Yeah, it's always entertaining, always fun. I'm going to introduce my nieces and nephews to
it. Jass?
4.5. I base the rewatchability score always on, like, if I can watch it in whatever mood I'm in.
Yeah.
So, like, example, Moana, I can watch whatever mood I'm in, but Clueless, sometimes I might not be in the mood for it.
Helen?
I'm going to go 4.5. I've seen this loads, and if you, for some reason, someone said, oh, I'm going to watch Clueless tonight, do you want to watch it? I'd be like, yeah. It's quite short. I've seen it loads, and I just really enjoy it when I watch it. So, yeah, 4.5.
Yeah, I'm going to go for 3.5. I'll keep on watching it, but I don't think I'll be as enthused as previous. And maybe tying a bit into engagement score. I think it's the kind of film, but I'm giving it quite a high score because I don't think it's the kind of film I need to be paying attention to that much. I'm quite happy having it on in the background and twittering about and stuff like that as well. Small screen score.
I mean, I am really biased towards this film. But no, do you know what? Yeah, I think it doesn't lose anything watching it on the small screen. I'm going to give it 4.8 because otherwise I will just seem like a crazed obsessive about this film, and I love it. But yeah, 4.8. It's a good one.
Yes.
I would give it... I didn't get to see it in the cinema, so I don't know what the difference would be. Someone please replay it in a cinema so I can go watch it when cinemas reopen in the after times, if those will ever exist. I would give it a 4.
Helen?
Yeah, I've never seen this at the cinema. I'm trying to think if it was on at the Prince Charles and it was kind of like a kind of quote along type thing, would I go along? Maybe I don't like it that much. Yeah, I'm going to give it a 5. I think it works perfectly fine as a home movie, and I've only ever seen it at home, so 5.
That's it. I think was it US that said you had it on DVD and you had the cassette tape soundtrack, and then you had it on VHS, and then you got the DVD. Was that a Blu-ray or DVD that you're brandishing before?
It was. I don't own a Blu-ray player. It was DVD.
DVD. That's fine. But yeah, it's one of those kind of films. It's gone through all the different transformations, hasn't it? So with the small screen score, I've only watched it in the small screen, and I would have watched it in the worst experience, which is a VHS, and not thought anything of it. And on Netflix, which would have been a decent quality, I was like, yeah, this is fine. And also the music was, I remember the soundtrack being a big thing, but it's never like with a Quentin Tarantino film, the music was so part of the film. It was just like another song in the car or whatever. So it didn't really seem, I don't think the score was anything spectacular. What do you guys reckon with that?
I think it's funny when they talk about the Rolling with the Homies song. Like, I don't even really know that song properly, but I use the Rolling with my Homies all the time, like in general conversations, even though I don't actually know the whole song, and I've only ever heard like the bit that's in the film. And then they talk about Radiohead a fair bit when they're in the car and stuff.
Engagement score, Esther.
5. I mean, I know it off by heart because I can totally quote it. I really, really enjoy watching it, and yeah, I will drop things to watch this film.
Jass.
Oh, this is a hard one. I don't know if it's because I've seen it so many times, because like you, I can put it on in the background and just pop my head in for my favourite parts while I'm doing other things. But inevitably, I probably will stand there for a good half an hour before I remember I need to go do something else again. So...
Is it one of those ways you kind of say, "Oh, I'll just stay for this bit," and then this bit lasts like for 40 minutes, and you stood up for 40 minutes?
Or like I'm cleaning, I don't know, like maybe I'm organising something, but then I'll move everything that I'm organising into the room with the telly so I can like watch it as I'm doing stuff. I'd say I'd give that a 4 as well for engagement, because it does stop. It stops me in my tracks, so it's good.
Helen.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 4 as well. It's a really easy watch. You don't need to be completely glued to it, and it kind of just zips along nicely. And yeah, 4.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go for 4 as well, because I think this is a kind of nice kind of level where I'm happy putting it on. I'll lie down on the sofa, but then I will be second screening and doing other stuff in the bits I don't find that interesting, or and I don't need to pay attention. So it's a nice kind of comfort film that way, isn't it? For me, maybe less so for Esther. I need to be sitting there paying attention to every moment. And that gives us an overall score of 4.4250, also, which is a decent score, guys. I expected it to be. And I didn't think many people would not like this film. So as we say at this point in every episode, guys, do post on Twitter, because we do put a shout out before we go into the recording and say something like this, which in this case, we're reviewing Clueless with She Geek Beham and Jass Thethi from Well-Spoken Teas. Well, it's Well-Spoken Tokens. That's their podcast. Have you seen it? Give us your thoughts and a score out of 5 stars for an on-air shout out on this very podcast. We had a fair amount of responses. Esther, as this is your film, do you want to take the first tweet?
So there was Liam H. Dempsey, who said, most directors would be satisfied with revolutionising the teen movie once, but Amy Heckerling did it twice. 1982 with Flash Times at Ridgemont High, and then all over again here. The script is smart, silly, and witty as hell, while Alicia Silverstone oozes star quality 4 stars. Could not agree more. Other than get less than 5 stars.
Jass.
So JB Soundtrack says, like, totally 5 stars. One of my favorite movies. Love it from its dialogue to the clothes to the gorgeous Britanny Murphy to the ageless Paul Rudd. Audi.
It should be out. It's Audi, isn't it? It's in the car. I saw that for the first time with because I watched it with subtitles on, and it says "I'm Audi," which I always thought it was "I'm Outie." Like,
I feel like the subtitles got that wrong.
You feel it shouldn't be? It should be Audi or Audi.
It's Audi.
I'm Audi.
Yeah, I'm out.
Well, let's contact Amy Heckerling and ask her. Helen.
The next one is from Movie Reviews in 20 Qs podcast. 4 stars. Deserves every good thing said about it while becoming one of the most 90s film to ever 90s film.
Fair enough. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us where we can find you online and say goodbye to everyone listening?
Yeah, as we said, the podcast is Well Spoken Tokens. It's on Anchor, it's on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on Twitter at well_spoken_teas. And you can follow us both. I'm at Cheek Geek Behum, and Jass is at Jass Thethi.
Guys, go and listen to our podcast because it's great. And well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Enjoyed this episode of Flixwatcher podcast? Why not leave us a 5-star review on iTunes? You can also follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter, and we're at FlixWatcher on Instagram. Thanks as always to the mighty people for their mighty, mighty tunes, and Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills. If you're looking to get your podcast edited as sweet as this, get in touch with Ben, and that's Rockwood, ROKK Wood Audio. Tell him Flixwatcher sent you.
You just heard a Stripped Media production.
These are violent criminals, so they're not going to go down easy.
ABC Tuesdays.
Let's get this done.
The Rookie is back.
We have 2 new rookies starting today.
Howdy.
Being a cop is stressful 24/7. Every year on the job is different.
And Training Day.
We have a serial killer at large.
Never ends.
We need an ambulance!
The Rookie. All new Tuesdays on ABC and stream on Hulu.